All right, guys. It is, I can't even look at it because I'm looking at my recording on here, but it's close to 10 p.m. on January 7th. And I think you know what we're about to get into. We're about to get into Conformity Gate with Stranger Things. Now, let me first preface that since I started hearing about Conformity Gate, I hoped and I dreamed and I wanted it to happen. Because then all of my issues that I had, if you watch my previous episode, it'll be somewhere on here, but all of my issues that I had with the finale would have been solved because it wasn't the real finale. And now, I've heard people online say that's a stupid idea. Why would they make spend all this money, which I do kind of understand, but spend all of this money on a fake finale only to come out and then put a new one out there? Doesn't make any sense. I will give you that. However, we know that the Duffer Brothers are really invested in the stories that were told in our time during the 1980s, right? The whole entire show revolves around 80s shows, 80s nostalgia, and lo and behold, D&D, aka Dungeons and Dragons. Now, there are a lot, and this is why I was like, I think there could be some smoke. There's some smoke to the fire. Now, I don't believe, at least right now, with everything that I've heard from the Duffers in post interviews after the finale, I don't believe these guys are smart enough to pull something like this off. I'm not going to lie to you. That's why I did not believe that anything was going to happen today. I'm not super upset about it because I was not expecting anything. However, hoping that something did, and would have been very happy to come on here and discuss episode 9 of Stranger Things if that were the case. However, that's not the case because it's 10 p.m., and we've got nothing, okay? The only thing that we have gotten, and it wasn't today, but it was a couple days ago, is that there will be a documentary releasing on January 12th, which is next Monday. We will be touching back on that. Don't you worry about that, okay? I didn't just say it for nothing. So, let's get into kind of some of them. I'm not going to go into detail on every single thing that's been found because I'm telling you there are people out here who are going bananas and trying to find all kinds of little inconsistencies in the whole entire season 5. Some of them just in the at the end of the finale. You know, me personally, I would like to think that the finale is where, stuff started to kind of go awry, and that is where the fission started, where we are getting away from that finale and they are all under illusion. I feel like that time happened, or could have happened, somewhere in the finale. I think if we make it to where the whole entire season they were under an illusion, I feel like that's a stretch. I feel like that's a huge, huge stretch, and I don't really agree with that one. Now, again, there are some instances about the Conformity Gate theory that do have some smoke, and there might be a little bit of a fire underneath here, you know what I'm saying? And one major thing for me, is the fact that the Duffers have told us, they have taught us how the world of Stranger Things 5, Season 5, is working and operating now that the cracks are in Hawkins and that everybody is kind of out here, right? Or that the shit's about to hit the fan. They've told us these things when we're with Holly and Max, and Holly is trying to figure out, okay, what is different in this world, in this memory that I have, so that I can get to the next memory, right? And the one thing that she pointed out was the spot in the merry-go-round being gray instead of yellow. The color difference is why she knew this. Well, again, she already knew that the world wasn't real, but that's how she knew that that is a way to another portion of her memory, because it was a different color. Why would you show us that detail in this season, and then in the finale, at the radio station, the dial that we see Robin using changes colors? And it's not just the dial, the entire mechanism is a different color. Now, that can be explained away by one thing that I thought in my head. They could have just renovated, right? They could have just gotten a new dial because it did look a little old in the other one. However, again, when the showrunners specifically are telling us to look at these different inconsistencies to prove that the world is not the world that we think it is, it's hard to believe that that was just an issue in post that nobody fucking saw. I'm sorry, it's a little weird. It's a coincidence. And as we talk about coincidences, what did Lucas say in Volume 2. He said, we are... It may have been the finale. I don't even remember, to be honest with you. I think it was in Volume 2, but again, could have been the finale. Either way, though, he says, he's talking about it getting closer to November 6th. We're 3 days away from November 6th. And then he turns this entire time, he's talking to the guys who are in front of him, right? He's kind of like talking off, just kind of like in his head thinking. He's just like, it's 3 days to November 6th. November 6th is when this all started. And then looks directly at the camera and says, I don't know about you guys, but I don't believe in coincidences anymore.
You know what date it is, right? November 3rd. Will was taken on the 6th. We are less than 3 days away. 3 days away from the day that changed everything. I don't know about you guys, but I don't believe in coincidences. Not anymore.
Why would you look at the camera, at the audience, and say something like that? And again, he didn't say the coincidence part there. He only said, I don't know about you guys. That's where he was looking right at your soul. Now, main actors do not look directly at the camera. That's a sin. If you've watched film, you know that. They don't look directly at the camera unless there's a reason for it. And there are other theories of multiple people in the background looking at the camera. That can be explained away by them just being extras and them maybe not being full-fledged actors and not really understanding that they're not supposed to do that. Or it may have looked like they were looking at the camera, but really they were just locked in at the stage. That was because they were talking about people during the graduation who were all staring at the camera. But again, the camera was kind of positioned in front of the stage. So if I'm the camera, stage is behind me, everybody's looking at me, but they're really supposed to be looking at the stage. You know what I'm saying? So again, that can be explained away. Not saying anything about that. But Lucas, the main character, looking at the camera, that don't sit right with me. And the fact that he says, I don't believe in coincidences. Again, that's the Duffers potentially showing us or trying to tell us, hey, you shouldn't be expecting, or you shouldn't believe in coincidences either. Okay? Now, why I didn't believe that anything was going to happen today, even though I believe in some of these different aspects of the conformity gate theory, because the things that we were hearing of why it's going to be January 7th didn't make a lot of sense to me. It's not a lot of tangible things that are happening as to why January 7th could be that date, so I never really believed that. Again, hoped and dreamed that that was going to be the case. It is not. It is what it is. Kind of already knew that was going to happen. However, let me bring you guys back to, and I believe this one for sure was in Volume 2, because this is when they were escaping Camazotz, and they were trying to go through Holly's memories. That's exactly what we were just talking about earlier. When we get to her, I think it might be right before they get to the memory of the Demogorgon trying to take her. She is in the basement with her friend watching what movie? What movie was she watching? Yep, that's right. Nightmare on Elm Street with her friends. Now, I have not seen Nightmare on Elm Street, I don't think at all. I'm not going to lie to you. I know who Freddy Krueger is. I know that. You know what I mean? He's the guy who comes into your dreams and he makes you think that, whatever. I don't know. I don't really know exactly, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, my point is, that is the movie they were watching. I did not know this because I am not a Freddy Krueger guy. I'm not a Nightmare on Elm Street guy. But the 7th movie is a documentary with the actors reprising themselves. So they're not playing the characters that they played in the movie. And if you know this movie, you already know this. But they're not playing the characters that they played. They're playing themselves, doing a documentary of the making of those movies. And then Freddy Krueger comes to the real world and gets them. Okay? Bro, let me tell you what. If I was in the 80s watching these movies year after year, whatever, on the release day, we're going and we're seeing these movies and then we see a documentary and then that happens, boy, honky, I'm gonna think Freddy Krueger's for real, you know what I'm saying? But, again, super meta. Oh God, I spit a little bit. Super meta, okay? That's my point. Millie Bobby Brown, at the end of this series, or I don't know when it was, but she was in an interview and she was asked, just give us one word to describe the ending of the series. And the word she chose was meta. Now, I don't know about you, But if you saw that finale, there was nothing fucking meta about that goddamn finale. That finale was cookie cutter and the most easiest sense of the word. There is no other way to look at that finale and just say, no, they took the easy way out, except for Elle sacrificing herself off a whim. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know, Millie, where you thought that shit was meta, but it sure as fuck wasn't. But you know what would be meta? If during this documentary on Monday, Vecna comes out and he is in the real world and he is taking over and trying to get the actors that we've seen play these characters, that would be a meta ending. I tell you what. And you know what else would be? Or you know what else is kind of goes in line with this? The Duffer Brothers specifically said that the final script for the finale was written on red paper. And when we saw the clips of the cast reading the finale and reading the final script, it was on white paper. Now again, nobody is sitting here just grasping at straws. Those motherfuckers said this shit. And then we show us a clip that's not on fucking red paper. I'm sorry, but it sounds like some fuckery's afoot, okay? So, in conclusion, I know I didn't go in depth of the conformity gate, but let me just say, there are a plethora of coincidences that have been occurring, at the very least within the finale, and just how the finale ended and how all of that came to be. There's a lot of coincidences that don't make sense for it to just be done right there. And trust me, I am not 100% on whether there's gonna be something during this documentary. But if there isn't, that just means that the Duffer Brothers are really this fucking dumb. And it's really, really upsetting to understand that these guys who have not dropped the ball in 5 seasons are completely dropping the ball now for the last season. And could that be because they want to focus on the spin-offs? I don't know. But let me tell you this, a way for you to not, let me back it up. You should not be so much focused on the spin-offs of a show that you are trying to end that you made the ending this shit, okay? I still keep going back to Millie Bobby Brown saying that this was meta. The only way that I can see her saying that is if we have some kind of, again, other episode that does bring us back into the fold and really shows us what's actually going on. Even when this shit happened, when they killed Vecna, and then 18 months later, we have that jump, I told everybody that I was watching it with, how much you want to bet? How much you want to bet? Vecna has them under his control, and we got about 10 minutes of this shit before the veil is lifted and we're right back into the battle. And obviously that's not what we got, but that's what I thought. Just because it was like, this doesn't make sense. 5 minutes it took you to fight this fucking thing? It just doesn't click with me. It doesn't. My last thing that I'm gonna leave you with, because I just found this out, and this is why, I will say, I definitely think something is going to be in this documentary. I don't think it's just going to be a cookie cutter documentary about the making of this. Tell me this, how often do you see a documentary of the last season coming out so soon after the last season? I could be wrong because I don't watch documentaries about films that are made or TV shows, so I might be mistaken. This might happen all the time. But to me, you're going to give it at least a month, a little bit of breathing room before you put the documentary about you making the thing, right? And again, whatever, I could be wrong. But 12 days after seems a little too soon, right? Not even a whole 2 weeks out, right? And we know that the Duffer Brothers like to do stuff like this. They wanted to make a film, before they even made Stranger Things, they wanted to make an adaptation of a Spielberg book, right? Any one of his books, they're huge Spielberg fan. That was their goal, and they never got the rights to it. So that's why they started making Stranger Things. If you guys don't know, the Spielberg series Dark Tower. At the end of the Dark Tower, now let me preface, I have not read these books, okay? Let me preface that, I've heard this. But at the end of one of the books in Dark Tower, or at the end of the last book, you have the good ending. And the book, the author specifically tells you, Spielberg, hey, if you want this ending, you better leave it right here. Don't read any further. If you want your good ending, stop right here, you have your good ending. You want the real ending, continue reading. So, it seems like there's a lot of, again, influences with the Duffers that we could see this being the case. The fact that they announced this documentary shortly after the finale. Millie Bobby Brown saying that this shit is meta, and it definitely fucking wasn't what we saw. The end of the last movie of Nightmare on Elm Street ending with a documentary that's not a real documentary. It's a meta take on the monster coming into the real world. How else would you want to end a 10-year episode or 10-year series? I think that would be the penultimate way to end this series. And if they don't end it and it ends the way that it did, what a worst way. One of the worst ways to end a 10-year series. I don't know. All I can say is I don't know. All I can tell you is that on Monday, my wife and I are going to be locked in and we're going to be watching this documentary. We're going to try to see something, okay? And if there is something, you best believe I'll be coming back and we'll be discussing. But until next time, I have been your host, Jedi Master Ren, on the Apologetic Nerd Channel, where we nerd about... Words are hard. Where we nerd out about anything and everything under the green, blue, red, sun, whatever planet you're on, you know, because you could be in the abyss. I don't know. I don't discriminate, okay? But anyway, my point is, I will be back to discuss Stranger Things potentially, but make sure you do not subscribe down below. There's a little button down there. Do not hit that button, okay? I don't know why. I've got 96 people who have hit it, and I don't need any more, okay? I do not need 4 more people to get me up to triple digits in subscribers. Do not do that, okay? But until next time, I will see you.